troubleshooting. This troubleshooting will take more time. So I have to explain each and every issue and those kind of stuff because all the main troubleshooting issues are very, very important. That's why I'm trying to cover, Master. And again, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, you do not have a session. Saturday, Sunday. Again, we'll meet on Monday. Right? Yeah. Guys, ready?
Yes, sir.
Ready. ROM, read-only memory. So it's a simple single chip. So what are the data and instructions are put into this ROM chip? It's permanent. We can't remove, we can't edit it also. The ROM chip also, different models are there. ROM, PROM, EPROM, EPROM means that's electrically erasable, programmable, read-only memory. Okay, right now we are using EPROM. It's rewritable, means we can insert instructions and data, and also we can remove it and we can reprogram it. That's EPROM chips. Right now, generally we are using, and depends upon the system designing. Okay, so they use this um, um, ROM chips. Okay, that's different ROM chips we are using it. Yeah. Okay. Again, the ROM chip. What are the EPROM, EPROM? What we are using? We don't mind about this ROM chip. It's a fixed chip on motherboard. Okay. Generally, we can't just like a RAM. Removing and reinserting RAM is not there. The reinserting RAM is there, but ROM removing and reinserting ROM chip is not there. Some ROM chip we can able to remove it, but not replacing with any. We go market and buy a new ROM chip and inserting is not there. In your laptop or desktop, you have 4 GB RAM, you are adding another 4 GB RAM, possible. Okay, but ROM chip, like a RAM, you are replacing your old RAM with a new RAM, possible. But ROM, no, we can't remove like that. We can't buy a new ROM chip from Amazon or Flipkart and replacing is not possible. Okay, you want to replace, then you have to take your system to service center. Next, this ROM chip contains a program. This ROM chip contains a program called BIOS. That's why this ROM chip also called as BIOS chip. What is BIOS? Basic Input Output System. Basic Input Output System. It is a firmware. It is a firmware. Like hardware, software, it's a firmware. What is BIOS? Basic Input Output System. It's a firmware. BIOS helps your system to boot. When you power on your system, the BIOS helps your system to perform post operations. So BIOS helps system boot. When you power on your system, BIOS helps perform post operation. Power on self test. When you power on your system test itself to make sure all the components working or not and what are the components are connected. Okay. So the BIOS helps to perform this post operation. Power on self test. System test itself to make sure all components working or not. That's a post. Next, BIOS recognize hardware devices. So when you power on your system, the BIOS recognize what are the hardware devices are connected, what CPU is connected, what RAM is inserted, what hard disk is inserted, what CD-ROM is inserted, what graphic card is inserted. It collects all this hardware information. BIOS helps your system to locate and load operating system. So where is your bootable device? Okay, where is the bootable device and which priority we have to verify? Where is the bootable device and how to load operating system? Okay, so where is the operating system device it is? Okay, and your BIOS helps operating system to access hardware devices. Because your BIOS chip knows where is the hardware devices, it helps your operating system to recognize where is the hardware devices. Okay. So this is about your BIOS. So ROM contains a program called BIOS, which is nothing but a firmware. BIOS, basic input output system. BIOS helps your system to boot. BIOS helps your system to perform post operations. BIOS recognize hardware devices when system is powering on. BIOS helps your system to locate and load operating system. Okay. And this BIOS, the newer version of BIOS, currently our laptops and desktops, comes with a newer version of BIOS. What is that? Is UEFI, Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. Unified Extensible Firmware Interface, which is a newer version of BIOS. BIOS is nothing but a firmware. Newer version is UEFI. I have written few things. I will see that when we have a time to discuss. Normally, the BIOS setup, we call it as a legacy setup. Legacy, if sometimes you go inside your BIOS settings, in all newer versions of hardwares having UEFI, all very old are having a BIOS. In between this old and new, we have a BIOS come UEFI there. Means the same chip contains BIOS related or UEFI related firmwares are there. Which firmware like would support, like BIOS support older operating system before Windows 8, like Windows 7, Windows Vista, Windows XP, BIOS supported operating system. Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows 11, UEFI supported operating system. Okay. So in between is in that kind of time. So the BIOS chip, combination of BIOS and UEFI. So legacy means BIOS. Okay. UEFI or EFI means EFI only. Okay. BIOS support MBR based partition related, UEFI supported GPT partition styles. So BIOS, UEFI support newer operating system, BIOS support old operating system. BIOS support both. Okay. This is needed time to understand, so that separately, if possible, I will explain it. Again, these BIOS chips, different manufacturers are there. AMI BIOS, Advert BIOS, American Megatrend Inc. BIOS, AMI, American Megatrend Inc. Okay, BIOS, Advert BIOS, Phonics BIOS, HP BIOS, Dell BIOS, different BIOS manufacturers also there. Okay. So this is about your ROM chip and BIOS chip. In here, we discussed also I put a one point, that is BIOS recognize hardware devices. The BIOS contains some instructions and data to help your system to boot, locate and load operating systems, recognizing hardware devices, right? And BIOS settings. In BIOS, we have a hardware related settings also there. Hardware related settings also there. The BIOS contains hardware information and hardware related settings also there. Like a boot operating system, bootable device related priority settings are there. And BIOS runs date and time. Your BIOS chip runs date and time. Okay. So BIOS contains your hardware features, their settings, certain hardware features we can enable and disable in BIOS settings. Hardware features we can enable and disable it. We can change certain settings of hardware related settings. Boot priority settings, we can change it. We can also check your hardware information also. To do that one, you have to go to the BIOS settings. Okay. So once again, the BIOS contains hardware information. We can check the hardware configuration, change some of hardware settings. We can change by hardware related features, enabling and disabling certain hardware features. We can check and change the date and time. Okay. We can check and change the boot priority list. Also, we can secure our BIOS from unauthorized access by setting the BIOS password, which is different from your operating system password. You power on your system, you log into your system, right? That is generally your login password only. Which login password you are using, that is nothing but operating system password. Okay. Check system configuration, CPU, RAM, okay. Hard disk, SSD configuration also we can do it. Okay, this is why it is required to go to the BIOS settings. How to do that one? You have to go to the BIOS settings. To go to the BIOS settings, different methods are there. One is like when you power on your system, on the screen, it will shows which key is for go to the BIOS setup, BIOS setting or BIOS setup. See in this screen, it's showing F2 setup, F12 boot menu. Okay, F2 setup. So you press F2, you will go to the BIOS. Okay, universally, it's in our olden days we use Dell is as a universal BIOS key. Okay, universal BIOS key generally Dell means delete button. Okay, and next one is most commonly we use F2 and depends upon your BIOS or manufacturer of laptop or desktop, different BIOS keys also there. Sometimes you have to use the function key plus BIOS. Okay, some system have F10, F12, F11, F9 are most common, but universally most common one is delete button, second one is F2 button, others are depends upon the manufacturer. Okay, so this is by pressing the BIOS key, you can go to the BIOS settings. As I said, once you go to the BIOS settings, what we can do? We can able to change the date and time. This date and time will be run by your BIOS setting. Actually, our system date and time is fixed by Microsoft time.windows.com NTP server, Network Time Protocol, NTP server. Okay, time server it is fixed. But even you do not have an internet, but still your system running date and time. How it is possible? Your BIOS running this date and time. Okay, date and time runs by it. We can change the date and time. Olden days, we do not have an internet, right? We don't have this synchronization. So whenever you purchase a new system, first we'll fix the date and time. Next step. You can also see in this screen, there is a CPU configuration i7 4500U model. Okay. And cache memory is L3 cache memory, 4 MB L3 cache memory. Okay. Fixed hard disk 1000 GB. SATA hard disk. Okay. SATA hard disk. That is 1000 GB Western Digital. SATA, what is that? DVD writer. And total memory means it is 8 GB. It is showing total memory RAM. 8 GB RAM, 1600 megahertz RAM. It is. So mostly 1600 it's generally it is DDR3 RAM. So I got my CPU information, RAM information, hard disk information. Also I got it from this screen. Guys, BIOS settings not always look same. Depends upon your system, depends upon your BIOS manufacturer. So how they will create it. So it's like that only. Sometimes look like this one, sometimes different. Okay, it's not always same. But concept components are almost all same. Okay. Some are having additional features, some are having a common features. That's it all. Desktop, laptop. So laptop having a battery related information sometimes. Okay, different system have different types of BIOS setting. Depends upon the BIOS manufacturer, motherboard manufacturer, will tell what information should be inside your BIOS chip. So they put that information in BIOS chip. That's it. The default motherboard data information is there in the BIOS automatically. Okay. So next one. See, this is some I've in another screen. So I went to some advanced. See, there is a enable and disable of certain hardware related features, mainly CPU related features are there. Okay, here Intel virtualization technology enabled. So maybe in a feature in earlier it is disabled. It's changed to enable mode. Okay, virtualization technology is enabled means earlier it is disabled. Now we are enabled to get that feature. Okay. And here it is setting a security password. So this is supervisor password, user password. I said both the passwords. For example, you know the user password. And when you are power on the lap system and go to BIOS setting, it asks the password. You enter the user password means you can view the settings. You can't change it, but you can view the settings. So if you are enter the supervisor password means you can able to change the settings also. It's only is used to protect from unauthorized access of your BIOS settings if they want to change any BIOS related settings. Okay, any hardware related settings they want to change. So you want to prevent it from unauthorized access. You can set the passwords. And next, this is a boot priorities. This is a very important in the BIOS settings. After that, after the first menu, that's the date and time. This is the boot priorities. What is a boot priority? Is if you power on your system, when you power on your system, okay, first is post operations happen. So first is ROM help your system to perform post, right? So system perform post power on self test to make sure all the primary components working or not. To make sure all primary components working or not. Okay. So that's a post. After post completion, system search for the OS. Where is my operating system? So your BIOS is giving this priority list. It will tell check as per this list. In this list, it will tell your system check OS in the CD-RAM. So system search for the OS in the CD-RAM. CD-RAM contains a OS drive. It load the OS from CD-RAM. It does not contain any OS devices. Then it check for the removable device. Means pen drives, USB drives. Check any USB drives connected with the OS. No, then go with the hard disk. Is hard disk contains a OS? Yes, load OS. Hard disk not having OS? Then check from the network. Through network, any OS is distributed? Yes, load that one. Otherwise, no. And throw the error message. No OS found. No bootable device found. This boot priority also we can change it. Generally, where is your operating system? In hard disk. You can change hard disk to higher priority. Okay, instead of CD-RAM, so highest one is hard disk. Starting one is hard disk. You power on your system, post is done. Next is search for the OS. So system search for OS in the hard disk. Hard disk contains the OS, load it. It won't verify the remaining devices. Not required also. Okay. So that is called a boot priority. So if you take any fresh system, no OS system, so obviously this kind of thing is preferable. Already OS contained system means hard disk is the first one generally. Okay. So this is the your boot priority list. Okay. And anything? I didn't add another one. So last one is the exit. Okay. Exit means save and exit. So what are the BIOS settings you have done? It changed from the last. You have to save it and exit. Simple. You can select save and exit or you can press F10 to save and exit the settings. Once again, guys, what is the BIOS settings? In BIOS, we have a hardware related settings or features, boot priorities, hardware information, and date and time also runs in the BIOS. To check it and change those things, we need to go to the BIOS settings for certain times for troubleshooting purpose also. Okay. So how to go to BIOS setting? By pressing delete button when system is booted, not now. Okay. When you restart your system or maybe when you power on your system, press the delete button or BIOS key. Depends upon your system. BIOS key maybe changes F2 or F10 or F9. So press the BIOS key. It will take you to the BIOS settings. In the BIOS setting, check the date and time and is correctly configured or not. If required, we can change the date and time. Okay, check the CPU, RAM, and hard disk information. And also you can check the different other settings. If required, we do enable the certain settings like a virtualization technology enable kind of stuff. Okay, CPU clocks, number of cores, active cores, like that we can also do certain settings. You can protect your BIOS settings from the unauthorized access by setting the BIOS passwords. And you can also change the BIOS priority list. Depends upon your operating system bootable kind of stuff. You can change the BIOS priority list. This priority helps your system to locate and load the operating system. Finally, once you have done, then save and exit. Okay. This is what BIOS settings it is. In the ROM, one more is there, guys. Guys, understand BIOS settings? If you understand BIOS setting,
Yes.
this is quite easy. Yeah, very good. CMOS battery. What is CMOS battery? Uh, we call this one as a CMOS battery generally, guys. Actually, it is a lithium 3 volts battery. It is a CMOS battery is nothing but a lithium 3 volts battery. It is. Okay. This is also called as BIOS battery also. Okay. Yeah. So why this is a CMOS battery? Because how we people are keep on calling as CMOS battery. Later on days, it's become hobby and become a name. Okay. So we'll see first of all, guys, this BIOS is a nothing but a ROM chip, right? ROM chip contains a program called BIOS, so it's called as BIOS. It contains data and instructions, which is permanent. By default, when the manufacturer manufacturing this BIOS chip, put this data and instructions with a factory default settings. With a factory default settings. If any changes from the factory default settings are temporary, any settings change from the factory default setting is temporary. Like date and time. You change it from the factory default to the current date and time. You set up a BIOS passwords from empty password from the factory default, nothing no is there, but you have set the password. You change the settings from the factory default one. You change the configuration or settings or enable, disable certain features. You change the boot priority from the factory default settings. These are all changes are temporary. All these changes are temporary. Any data is temporary. To protect it from deletion, you need a continuous power supply. But you shut down your PC. What happened? BIOS chip don't get a power supply and the data, whatever the settings you have done, you then date and time will stop running. First of all, date and time will stop running. And what are the date and time you are set it? That is also gone. The passwords are gone. Okay, the changes configuration settings are gone. Boot priorities are gone. It reset back to the factory default. Reset back to the factory default. To prevent it from your settings deleting and to keep the running of date and time, So this BIOS chip need a continuous power supply. So who is going to give that power supply is this BIOS battery or CMOS battery, which is nothing but a lithium battery. Guys, remember, this is a battery. Battery provide power supply, not memory. Some people keep telling CMOS battery stores data. No, guys, it's a battery. When you say it's a battery, battery means stores power, not memory. It's generally it's a lithium battery. It's a component is lithium. It's a 3 volts battery. This lithium battery continuously giving power supply to your BIOS chip. Okay. Yeah. So it's because of continuous power supply. Even you power off your system, the CMOS battery will keep on giving power supply to your BIOS. All your settings, date and time will be run, passwords will be safe, and boot priority will be like that only. All settings will be safe only. That's the point of using this lithium 3 volts battery. Of course, there is a number called CR2032, general number. BIOS battery powers CMOS BIOS memory is called like a battery which is powers BIOS memory, which is called a CMOS battery. So CMOS battery, this battery 3 volts battery. If you remove this BIOS battery, what happen? All the settings go to the factory default. Even when you shut down your system, the to keep the data settings and to run the date and time, this battery will provide a power supply. Okay, this is about your CMOS battery. As I said, guys, earlier, if you remove this BIOS battery, what happen? BIOS battery, what happen? The settings, the date and time settings will be gone from your date and time settings, boot priorities, everything is gone to the factory default. So for example, today you use a system, you've done all the settings. So you shut down your PC. So I remove the battery and reinsert the battery. Next day you power on your system. What happened? It shows CMOS checksum error or a bad. What is CMOS checksum error or CMOS checksum bad? Meaning is one of the main possibilities BIOS settings are reset to the factory default. Okay. What you have to do, it will ask press F1 or F2 to go to setup and then change the settings back to the as you done settings earlier. So reconfigure your settings, then reboot, save and exit, reboot your system, it works. But guys, think like that. You have a system, every time you are getting this BIOS setting. Even you change the settings, next time also you are getting same issue. It's happened to most of our systems is in generally old systems. What happened? The system not maintained properly. That's this BIOS batteries become weaker. Means low power, no power kind of stuff. Low power, no power. When low power, no power of the battery means does not low power, no power means what happened when you power on your system? Again, it's showing CMOS checksum battery bad or error. Okay, checksum error or bad. So what you have done, you change the settings and continue. Next time also you are getting same thing. What to do? What to do? You have to change the battery. So if you go and market and ask for the battery, so in their mouth, what is the cost they are getting? They will charge you with that one. Original battery is 10 rupees cost only for a very long period of time, almost like a 20, 30 years, it's a 10 rupees only. So later it is become 20 rupees. Now the cost is 50 rupees only. If you really want to buy the battery, the Panasonic battery, it's a 20 rupees, 50 rupees only. The highest cost. It's like as a no, as a last time I checked it. You want to buy a bunch of cards, like with a total one also you can buy it. Okay. Its cost is one battery is around 50 rupees. 20 rupees battery is also there, 50 rupees. It's available. But you want to buy directly like that one, they ask you, some people ask you 300 rupees for a battery. It's a battery, guys. It's not a nanotechnology and all. It's a simple 3 volts battery it is. Each battery works at least 5 years minimum. Okay, even in a modern days of a system heavy use, also works for a 5 years. Very lightly used. Sometimes people use, sometimes not using. No powering on, not at all powering on systems also there. Old scrap type systems, the battery will drain very faster. Okay, regularly using systems, battery last longer for at least more than 5 years it will work. Okay, but when you are getting continuously this CMOS checksum error bad, means mostly the power is down. So remove the battery and reinsert the battery. It's quite easy to do it. This is one more troubleshooting. So we discussed about CPU, RAM, and ROM. Three components, three issues. Okay, CPU is getting overheated. System restart itself again and again to prevent it from damage. If RAM is failure, loose connections or dust formation on the RAM, post failure is occur, means blank screen error occurs. If CMOS battery is low power, no power means the BIOS battery does not have enough power supply. No power supply or no battery is completed. Okay, no power supply means BIOS settings will be reset to the factory default and you got a CMOS checksum bad or error. Okay. So these are the three components. Actually, general I will complete up to this SMPS, but today we are unable to do it. Maybe I have taken very lengthy model or maybe lesser. Okay. Hmm. Okay, three components, guys, very important. CMOS battery. I hope you understand about this is CMOS battery. Guys, CMOS is IC technology. MOS, MOS. If you are from CSE, IT, ECE, you understand transistor, but okay, logical circuits, CMOS circuits. Okay, transistor, BJT, UJT, FET, field effective transistors, MOSFET, metal oxide semiconductor, field effective transistor. In that one, two versions, NMOS, PMOS. Combination of NMOS and PMOS is CMOS. It's a transistor combination, guys, for designing or creating chips, ICs, integrated circuits. All our ICs are manufactured with a transistor. Okay. NMOS, PMOS transistor. Combination is CMOS for because CMOS is very easy. Stabilized power distribution means heat distribution is stable and as well as speed. To achieve both, we use CMOS chips. And logical circuit wise, CMOS is quite easy. Faster also itself. Okay. So CMOS is a transistor technology to build ICs. CMOS is not a battery technology. Okay, don't take it mistakenly. In case once you are in your organization, your senior most person or your team leader try to argue with you that is CMOS is a battery technology and it's a very greatest technology like that. Say thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That's it. Okay, I will let me correct. So from 70s we learn some Latif sir told we don't know anything. He told like this only. We are accepting that one only like that. Okay. Don't argue with anybody because people are fixed with this kind of wrong information sometimes. Okay. Even we are learn in our engineering, we take the wrong information from outside. We studied everything in our schools and colleges, but when outside people take in a different, so we'll take that one only wrong information. But we learn in our school days and college days, everything is wrong. What we are thinking like that. If everything you are learning wrong means how can you judge which one right and wrong? It's the same problem. Star topology and CMOS batteries. These are all people get confused, even they're seen directly in their textbooks. Okay, there is nothing wrong wrong in your textbooks, and we are engineering, right, guys? Okay, CMOS is a chip technologies. We manufacturing chips using CMOS transistors. CMOS is also not one single transistor, a combination of NMOS and CMOS transistor. VLSI designing. You have a subject called, if you have a subject called VLSI designing, so you will understand that one CMOS chip. Okay. Any doubts, questions? No doubts, no questions. All doubts, all questions. All are confusion, no clarity. Nikhil, you came.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll meet you on Monday. Okay. So on Monday, we'll see about motherboard, this SMPS, and the storage, different types of storage devices, and hard disk and SSDs, and boot processing, and we'll continue. Okay. And entire hardware related maximum information I placed it. Certain hardware related troubleshootings. It's not there here, guys. And I'm going to share a document to you, and I will share it today only. It contains both hardware and networking related